Kiri is putting up honestly a better fight than I initially anticipated. I brought up that we didn't have the best understanding of her power because we didn't know entirely how strong she was. Like we kind of understood, like, you know, she's able to contend somewhat with Urza and whatnot, able to mess with some spells that were, you know, messing somewhat with Spriggan level people, something like Aqua Stream. But Brandish, though Brandish wasn't trying too crazy on, it was something that pushed her back, whereas like Kiri was able just to kind of cut right through it. It gives us like again a starting area, but again it's the kind of like wide area gap of where her strike can kind of fit in that kind of made it a little bit hard to understand. Because, you know, again, we knew like where she was able to kind of contend with to a degree. We knew that Urza in reality, like as long as she could not get caught in the hypnosis, she could beat Kiria with seemingly not a huge amount of difficulty. And we saw like her fighting against Laxus, whereas Laxus ran over Kiria. So we can kind of understand, like, obviously these people in reality are beyond what Kiria can do, but it wasn't enough to kind of like for sure kind of give us like an estimation of where she's at. But it was because of her, like some of her feats where it's like, yeah, she's strong, but she doesn't seem as powerful as, you know, as one would think at this point in the game. But Kiria actually did better in this last chapter, which it was showing that, again, that ceiling, we just didn't really know where she fully sat at strength-wise. But on top of that, we have the fact that she definitely seems stronger than I think a lot of people gave her credit for, which I still think is very understandably so, considering like mostly she's been defeated or been made to look like, you know, too reckless, too crazy for a fight. We'll see exactly how the fight's going to go. The whole thing with Lucy's arm is the most intriguing thing for me. I still think Lucy's going to win in the end. I'll be legitimately super surprised if we have all this kind of like set up and stuff around like Lucy and whatnot for Lucy to lose against Kiria again. I still think Lucy's going to win. It just seems like it's going to be more like, you know, with a much higher level of difficulty than I initially anticipated. I thought it like a medium level of difficulty, like a mid-level difficulty fight, but it looks like Lucy's going to be getting a much more aggressive battle than I initially anticipated. Because I knew like from the Mimi fight that Lucy would be able to contend. I figured that Mimi would be stronger. It seems like Kiria might be more powerful than Mimi, but on top of that, the personality thing is a huge difference between fighting Mimi, who's like, we'll battle you, but obviously it's not like a crazed killer, whereas like Kiria just seems to be fine like chopping people up. It doesn't really bother her whatsoever. So I'd say that when it comes to Lucy's arm, I gotta do a stream on Lucy's arm. I'll probably do that soon, maybe Thursday or something. Maybe like Friday or something. I just want to get it before the chapter's out. We'll just to kind of discuss the possibilities of the arm. Because like Lucy winning or losing, I do think is really interesting. I still think she's gonna win, but if she loses, I think that would be like, you know, that'd be a big shocker. But now the biggest thing to me is like the question of what's gonna go on with that arm. Because the arm, like Lucy losing an arm it'd be really intriguing, because losing a limb is a much more like it's a big damaging point for a character, but it's obviously it's not like a death. So it's way more reasonable that a manga would put in something, you know, like a character loss of limb, especially this far in the game. And I think it'd be believable because Mishima has done characters, you know, loss of limb before, losing an arm. It'll be surprising if it's Lucy. We know that future Lucy already lost an arm, obviously, but that was a different timeline. But Mishima did give like a Pardon Eden Zero that I don't think is an Eden Zero exclusive to how he views time. I think it's a Mishima way of how he views time. That's just something that I'm estimating. Because he talked about how like certain things in time, even if you do something to prevent them, time will try and nudge them back into happening. So Lucy losing her arm, but them preventing that timeline from happening, it's like, okay, well, they prevented her from losing her arm, but maybe at some point time wants to try and nudge it back into place where Lucy's going to lose her arm. I will say for sure, if Lucy's arm is cut off, the thing is, like, even if she gets it back, like, I'm fine with it, like, if it gets cut off, I'm fine with her getting it back. I would just want her to keep her arm off for a while. There's a video I'm going to put up soon. I'll probably put it up in a few days because it's mostly just a, you know, connecting a few dots kind of theory. It's not like I need to gather up 50 pages of backup material. It's going to be more of like, yeah, here's some stuff that I thought of that I think lines up with what's going on right now. Lucy, like, the only thing I would say Lucy right now, though, in the fight is she made a bad choice for what spell she was going to use. Like, when it comes to her, like, we only know the 2 starters mixes so far. But I would say out of the 2, Leon, like, her Leo Virgo one was not the right pick for this one because she was using AoE instead of like concentrated damage like the Scorpio Aquarius star dresses. You know, we saw that one actually like do damage, and that one actually has high levels of damage. It's not, you know, it's just a single attack weapon, not a big AoE light energy blast. So when it comes down to this chapter, I think there's a lot of things obviously that could happen, but the big question to me, obviously, like I said, status of Lucy's arm. I don't think it's an illusion. I don't think it's like Gemini because of the angle. Like, it could be a cop-out. Like, that's the thing. It could just be a fake. It could be something just to kind of like, you know, put you on edge until the next chapter. It could be a, like, I know some people are saying like a Kiri illusion. I hope it's not a Kiri illusion because I'd be wondering why Kiri would be an illusion at this point on Lucy when she wants to chop her up. I still really like the idea of Lucy losing an arm. And again, it doesn't have to be permanent. Like, Lucy could just lose an arm for that battle and then get it fixed later, and I'd be perfectly fine with it. I would just want her to, I just would want to see her without an arm for a little bit because it'd be an interesting case to see her handle essentially having one arm. And I think it would be a really interesting plot point without it being too outrageous. I mean, like, okay, well, Lucy needs to have her arm healed. Like, she needs to find Wendy at some point. And I wonder, like, how they would go about reattaching her arm. Like, could Laxus use lightning to cauterize the flesh? Like, if they could put it back on a spot, use lightning to cauterize the flesh. And then Wendy heals it? Maybe? Because Wendy can heal scars. So, like, maybe that's, like, a very, like, you know, it's still a logical thing to do. I don't know. Like, unless something happened to destroy her arm, I assume that she can just get it reattached. Reattaching a limb is I mean, it's realistic. So I assume, like, in a magic world, that, like, you know, it should be even easier to do. The only other thing I would really kind of look at when it comes to that whole area, you know, that whole zone of what's going on. Other than that, I would assume she'd get like a magic arm. I don't know. Either way, there's a lot of stuff I think that could happen in the next chapter. The big important thing again to me, status of his arm. I think though the chapter, as long as it continues to fight, like, we could easily get another chapter to half chapter after chapter 103, which would be really cool because I expected this fight to be maybe like a chapter plus long, and it looking like 2 to 3 maybe more chapters, which I think is fine because, like, with the arm, if the arm gets cut off and we get some like another chapter or 2 bloody battle with Lucy and Kiria, I think it'd be really cool. Because Kiria is an adversary to Lucy, where Lucy can have this opportunity to fight like an opponent who is this deranged slasher. So we'll see exactly how she fares. We have about one more week, 6 days, I guess. It's Wednesday now, to see where this fares and to see where Lucy kind of sits. Again, I would be genuinely surprised if she loses. I didn't think Kiria was going to put up this good of a fight as she's done, and I've been kind of happy about it because even though I was wrong in how I thought Lucy was going to perform, it makes Kiria look more confident and more capable of it as an enemy. It doesn't make her look as much as this overly reckless, unhinged, like, mad dog, where she's like kind of crazy, but clearly she's got at least some form of control. But anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, front like, subscribe, and share other videos. Remember, appreciate it. Subscribe, and thank you all for listening. Bye.